Warning, the Stone Age Gamer includes a lot of bad language. Cover your mother***ing ears.
Good evening and welcome to the Stone Age Gamer Podcast. I'm Kris Randazzo and joining me tonight is Fuckface Baseball Bat Dan Ryan. It's Ninja Baseball season. Dan and I had the good fortune to interview the creators of the new comic book adaptation of Ninja Baseball Batman. Get your baseball spirits and gear because the Stone Age Gamer Podcast starts now.
And Drew, and Mr. Maniscalco, the creator of Ninja Baseball Bat. You left him out of the intro. He's going to be so hurt.
I didn't say any of their names.
Well, you said the creators of the comic. But we also
all right.
Sorry.
This is episode 415. It is the week of June 17th, 2022, and as we said in the intro, Dan and I got to have a conversation with Dave Cook, Drew Maniscalco, and Steve Gregson.
Man, they're not coming back on now. That's for sure.
I got Maniscalco right, and then I mess up Gregson.
You messed up Steve. You got Maniscalco correct and fucked up Steve. That's wild.
They're the team behind the upcoming Ninja Baseball Spirits comic, which is an adaptation of one of our favorite arcade beat-em-ups, Ninja Baseball Batman, and it was a very good time. Dan did the hosting duties, too. He nailed it.
Oh, thank you.
He knocked it out of the park.
Oh, I was trying so hard not to do that. I almost said it like 50 times, but I didn't want to seem like a schmuck. So I didn't. I was so like legit, I was so much more nervous to talk to these three guys than Tommy Tallarico. And Tommy, like, not to, he's a giant name in the video game industry. Like a massive name, and I couldn't have given a fuck less about, like, I just was not nervous about that. But it's a property that I just love so much, and I didn't want to fanboy all over them, which I think I ended up doing a little bit anyway, but they could not have been any more sweet or humble or engaging. It was an absolutely fantastic conversation. I'm so excited for you guys to get to listen to it, because they are really, really great guys.
Well, without further ado, let's cut to the interview.
All right. Well, good evening once again, everyone. You are listening to the Stone Age Gamer Podcast. Joining us this week, we have got the creators behind the Ninja Baseball Spirits comic book that is currently up on Kickstarter, which you should go give them all of your monies so that we can make sure this gets funded. But in addition to that, we also have the creator of Ninja Baseball Batman, Drew Maniscalco, here with us as well. And I did say that right, Drew?
Yes, you did. Thank you very
Excellent.
much.
Nailed it.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. So we've got Drew Maniscalco, we've got Dave Cook. Say hello, Dave. And we've got Steve Gregson.
Indeed you do. Hello.
Excellent. And you guys are currently in Scotland, correct?
I'm in Scotland.
Dave...
Steve is down in England.
Yeah,
okay,
I'm in jolly old England.
Okay, so that right there, that's got to be my first question. Then you guys are working on a comic book adaptation. Are we calling it officially adaptation, sequel? What are we officially looking at?
I think we should defer that one to Drew.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an adaptation of the characters that I created for Ninja Baseball Batman. I think that's the best way to put it.
Okay. So we've got an adaptation of the original arcade game, Ninja Baseball Batman, which if you haven't played, you obviously haven't been listening to this show long enough, because I know that I've certainly talked about it enough. Kris has certainly talked about it as well. And it really is just this unbelievably creative and charming and wonderful game that is so rooted in the Americana of baseball. How did it get to the UK for you guys? Because as far as I know, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, baseball, not the biggest thing in England and Scotland, right?
Oh yeah.
No, not the biggest.
Yeah, it's not even like on the periphery. It's not even on the radar here. It's kind of just like, it's weird because I found out about the video game the same way most people did, was through the Angry Video Game Nerds YouTube review. And yeah, that's kind of how the game got on my radar, and I was straight on to MAME downloading it. Steve, I don't know how did you come across it?
Yeah, I think it's the only way anyone discovers it these days is through the Angry Video Game Nerd. So, yeah, same. Found the title on there, and then obviously very legally obtained it on MAME. And
well, I mean, are you allowed to say that with the creator of the game here, right? Like, are we allowed to be like, so we all found this game, just randomly? What is that like for you, Drew? Like, people finding this game, years later, through not the most legal of means. Is that something that, like, was an honor, or, like, were you pissed about it? I'm curious.
Yeah, no, actually, I was thrilled about it because up until, I think it was 2015, we did the game so long ago. I mean, not that I forgot about it, but it wasn't really something that I was keeping tabs on. And I remember being in New Jersey, Atlantic Islands, and I typed in Ninja Baseball Batman, and I have to tell you, I was shocked by all of it. It was just incredible. Like, all of the articles on Ninja Baseball Batman. I mean, I went further and I found fan art. Like, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This is something that, not that I had forgotten about, but again, it wasn't really on my radar. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, hey, you know what? I better go and, get a website and start to archive some of the old material, the original drawings, some of the storyboard, and then as it started to, as I started to get more and more involved, there was a lot more fan art, so I wanted to put that up there. But how everybody really, as Steve said, I mean, we didn't sell a lot of games. It really was a failure, if you will. And if it had not been for MAME making it available for people to play, it would have just been another, game in the arcade graveyard that you would never hear from again. So for me personally, it was great. I'm not making any residual money from the game, the original game,
right?
Had it not, like I said, had it not been for MAME, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
That's so, like, that's really refreshing to hear, right? Because we talk, Kris and I talk all the time about how we're very concerned about where gaming is going in the future. With digital-only consoles, and I'm a very big fan of digital things, mostly because I lived in apartments a whole bunch and didn't have a ton of space. So it was like, yes, bring me digital things so that I can keep space about, for my wife's stuff and when I had kids for that stuff. But we're always concerned about where these things are going in the future if they're not available on a platform like MAME. Like you said, how many other arcade games have been lost to that graveyard that we'll never hear from again, right?
Absolutely, yep.
So can we jump back then and talk about what was the inspiration for you to come up with Ninja Baseball Batman? Because I got to tell you, like, when I first found the game, was going through a list of like, oh, I found this file that has all of these MAME games on here. Let's look for something that I've never played before. And scrolling through, the name Ninja Baseball Batman was, well, I have to see what that is, right? I have to click on this one, and just absolutely was blown away and fell in love with it. So where did that all come from?
Well, it was 1991. I was in Redmond, Washington. I was working with IRAM America. And I had been reading about the box office, receipts for movies of that time. And, the top grossing movies were Ninja Turtles and Batman. And they were talking about how the superhero thing was like a big deal. And so, I sat down and I said, I'm going to create my own superhero, as if it's, that easy to do. And so I'm no Stan Lee. I grabbed the pencil and I was like just really thinking about it. I'm like, okay, well, if I did have this character, what would he be? He would have to have a weapon, right? He would have to have a costume. He's a man. Ninja, Ninja Turtles was popular. The whole ninja, that word was very popular. So I figured, okay, well, it's got to be ninja something. And then, it was like I was thinking of the uniform thing, and baseball is very popular, although it's not popular with Steve and Dave. It's very popular in Japan. And so I figured, okay, well, he has a uniform. So there's check, uniform check. A bat. I remember seeing a movie called Walking Tall, where the sheriff,
sure.
Yeah, where the sheriff kept everybody in line with a bat. And
John Baker.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. And I really didn't want, to kill anybody, but, if you could, if my character could hurt somebody, that would be good. And as I said, so it was like, okay, when I got on the baseball thing, I was thinking, okay, double header, a villain with two heads or an enemy with two heads.
Oh, I love it.
Sacrifice fly, right?
It's perfect. It's so simple and so beautiful that way. I love it.
Spitball, a ball that shoots fire out of his mouth. Screwball, a ball that's shooting screws or nails at, Ninja Batman. So, as I was going on, I was just, it was like ninja, baseball, and bat, and he's a man. And, it made sense to me, Ninja Baseball Batman. It didn't make sense to Warner Brothers. And that's kind of like where, there's, and that's why Ninja Baseball Spirits is Spirits and not Ninja Baseball Batman. There is, when I tried to trademark the name Ninja Baseball Batman, I was opposed by Warner Brothers. And, Warner Brothers, I'm not going to go fight against Warner Brothers. And so,
a very tiny little company.
Yeah,
very, very small.
And quite frankly, and honestly, they're claiming, confusion, and I looking back at it, I guess if somebody saw Batman, I guess they could say, wow, this has got to, but if you looked at the two characters, there's nothing, they're not even close.
not even Adam West Batman is this colorful. It's
no.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right. So you've got the character, you've got the name, and then like when I started playing this, and I saw the Captain Jose, I was like, I mean that has to be Jose Canseco, who was my favorite player growing up. Like even as an East Coast kid. Who should have been a Yankees fan because everybody else in his family was Yankees fans. In the late 80s, early 90s, I was a huge Oakland Athletics fan because of Jose Canseco, Mark McGwire. So, Jose Canseco, Ryne Sandberg, Roger Clemens, Darryl Strawberry. How did you end up with those four guys in particular? Because, like, I get Jose Canseco, and I suppose the only one I really don't, and not even that I don't get it, that I just think is a more interesting choice out of all of them is Ryne Sandberg. He because he wasn't in that echelon of those upper tier players at that time. A great player and a really cool guy. So just curious about that.
Yeah, well, in that particular year, I guess he had a good year because what I basically did was pulled out the All-Stars or the superstars from that particular year. So he must have had a good year. I was telling Steve and Dave that I'm a big Beatles fan, and if I had to do it over again, it would have been John, Paul, George, and Ringo.
Oh wow. Now that I think leads into an interesting question too, and I apologize if I go rambling back and forth from things. I really cannot explain how excited and happy all of this is making me right now, because I really do love this property that much. But for Steve and Dave, did you guys have any consideration, any thought whatsoever into updating the characters to more modern baseball players?
I think we both kind of wanted to keep it pretty, what the fans would know, because like everything, you'll take the smallest property that so few people know about, but everyone who does know about it will be hardcore into it, and you'll just really annoy someone if you change one of the main characters.
I think the thing to add as well is that we're just big fans of the game as well, so we kind of felt like we wanted to pay tribute to the game rather than completely rewriting the things that everyone loves about it. We wanted to keep that core kind of intact.
Because really, there's nothing wrong with the original stuff. I was just before the show, I was explaining to my kids what I was doing tonight, and so I brought my 5-year-old daughter over to my Dan built me an arcade cabinet for my 40th birthday to play Ninja Baseball Batman with him, and I booted up the game on MAME, and my 5-year-old was like, she was totally into it. She thought the blue guy was purple, and was kind of sad that he wasn't purple, but other than that, she was just having a blast with it, because even to a 5-year-old now... Do you want us
to make him purple in the comic?
Well, she saw the cheerleaders come up, and she was like, can I be those guys? Can I be them? But she had a blast with it. Like, so a 5-year-old kid looking at it still thinks it's the coolest looking thing, and these character designs they're brilliant, and they work as is. Like, just looking at the cover on your Kickstarter page, like, they look great. They're just wonderful designs. So I'm really glad.
I didn't want to stray too far with the designs on the comic from what we knew. Again, I mean, you guys might not be aware of it. Maybe you will be. Like, they redesigned the Ninja Turtles a few years ago. They made Raphael the main character, and there was riots in the street about it. It was crazy.
I'm a huge Turtles fan.
Yeah.
Me too. Absolutely. Leonardo was the best turtle. I'm not going to have a discussion about it, but
even if the Ninja Donatello, come on with the bow staff, Ninja Baseball Batman. Come on.
You might have to come back for another visit on the podcast for that one, so we can straight debate the Turtles.
I mean, slight tangent in this with the Ninja Turtles. Over here, we weren't allowed to call them Ninja Turtles because the word ninja was decided was too violent, so we got the Hero Turtles.
Yeah.
So I guess this is Hero Baseball Batman. That's kind of what we would have got.
That's so wild, and like it's crazy too, because like Kris, your daughter's 5. When I was building you that cabinet last summer. Being very manly and very technical and all the things I was doing, it looked great.
He's wearing that Jurassic Park shirt too.
Oh yeah, wearing the Jurassic Park tank top. It was excellent photos. In order to test it, right, I want to make sure everything's working. I download MAME or whatever. So I have 12-year-old daughters. I have twins. And I called one of them down because one of them couldn't be bothered with me. But my daughter Katie was like, yeah, I'll come check this out with you. And put on Ninja Baseball Batman as the game to test it out to make sure it was working. And she had like the same reaction. She was like, this is insane and wonderful. And why do the bats have bats? That's great. I'm fighting a plane in a plane. This is the best thing I've ever done. So like, it's one of the things that I think is so great. And especially like, with you adapting this property, and hopefully it gets out to more and more people, of this game really does have all of those charming little things about it, and it's such a crime that it never got released for home consoles. Is that something, Drew, that was ever discussed with IREM, of like, if we put this on Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis at the time, that's where we're going to find our audience?
It's funny. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. You got to cut me off. I'll just ramble.
No. It's funny that you mentioned that, because I did have an agreement for a consumer game, and as time went by, the arcade version was such a disaster. It was funny. I was just reading a letter today from Irem saying that there's no plans to release this game. We lost money on the project, and so there was, but there was a deal in place, but it never happened.
Oh, that's bananas. I can't help but think back at that time, if it had originally gone straight to console instead of arcade first, that it probably, I feel like it would have had a different kind of life. I'm thinking, 1991, that was early Super Nintendo. So yeah, I feel like it would have been pretty wild on consoles. And even if it didn't, like, this would be the kind of game that's worth like a metric ton of money right now if there was like a weird Super Nintendo card of it. Because it's just so bizarre and in the most delightful of ways. Like, I'm just looking at it right now. I'm looking at your Kickstarter page and just shocked and appalled that hasn't blown the goal away so far. Because it's so cool. It's such a weird. I don't even know what else to say. But it's so weird. The colors of the characters. The way they're uniform, but they're all so different. Like, it's seriously as interesting a design as any other of the properties that came from that generation. I mean, way more so than stuff like Power Rangers or anything. Like, this is outstanding. I'm not even a huge baseball fan. I just love it. I would definitely would have bought this game on Super Nintendo, no question, if I had seen it back then.
Right.
It's funny though, because we've got like we were seeing a lot more like arcade games getting sort of SNES releases now. Like Irem themselves, Undercover Cops came out on SNES carts. Like I think it was earlier this year, right, Steve? Like we both got it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think we ordered them late last year, but I think they finally shipped this year, right?
Yeah, and that's a really good Irem beat 'em up. So it's like just slap this on a cart as well. It would do numbers. It would definitely get sales.
Yeah, it's something like limited run games or whatever. I can't imagine it wouldn't. And we live in a world where Tough Enough is on the Nintendo Switch Online.
Limited Run is re-releasing Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, for crying out loud.
Like not to besmirch other developers, because I'm just some schlub in Jersey. What the hell do I know? But if those games are if Tough Enough is worthy of Nintendo Switch Online, I feel like Ninja Baseball Batman should also have gotten a release.
Limited Run are just re-releasing the two Bill and Ted video games, the Game Boy one and the NES one, and those games are awful.
They're terrible.
Don't get me wrong, I want to buy them because I'm an idiot. But I mean, if they can get a re-release, it's surely time. So all right, so you came up with these characters. We got the names of the guys. My daughter Katie did want me to. I asked if my kids had any questions. Katie did have a question for you, Drew. She wanted to know how you decided on the colors, because in my office at my house, I have a ton of baseball memorabilia up, and as Jose Canseco was one of my favorite players, I've got Kris got me an autographed Jose Canseco bat for my 40th birthday that's here, and like there's a bunch of cards on the wall because I'm a giant nerd. And Katie was like, so that guy's based on Jose Canseco, right? And I said, well, it's got the name. And she said, but he's red, and all your cards he's green. And I said, yeah, well, the Oakland Athletics were green. So she wanted to know, the 13-year-old now, wanted to know how you decided on the colors for the characters, or was that just like a programmer decision that they just made?
Yeah, that was actually my original drawing, and was him in pinstripes, because I'm a Yankees fan.
And good man.
Yeah, there we go. And so that was a programmer. They assigned the colors to the characters, and as I mentioned earlier, one of the things about the game that the colors and the moves, a lot of that I'm not a programmer, so I basically handed off the idea, and the guys at IRM at the time who designed the game, they really did. They really, a lot of what the people I read online love is what they did, which is, the programming of the game, the special moves, the colors, the characters. A lot of the characters that I supplied, there were a lot of enemy characters as well, but they expanded on that, and so they really they did, as I mentioned, the heavy lifting with regards to bringing the game to life, and a lot of what the people really enjoy is what they did. So I need to share that with them.
Awesome. Now, see, I read somewhere in an interview, it might have been an interview or just an article about Ninja Baseball Batman, where somebody had said you had mentioned previously years ago that you had wanted to name the characters possibly after like classic ball players like Mickey Mantle. And I know like King Babe is there, so obviously write a reference to Babe Ruth. Is that true?
Yeah, actually, my original idea was for a one-player game, and his name was going to be Mickey after Mickey Mantle, who was my hero growing up. And because I had loved Super Mario so much, the adventure type game, that I figured that would be it. When I submitted the game to Japan, they said, well, one-player games aren't going to be able to compete, with four-player games in the arcades. So they were like, go back and, come up with a couple of more characters. And, that's when the other three characters came along, and, more of the storyline or how the gameplay would work was also developed at that time. So, yeah, initially it was, Mickey. And then I had to add more characters for the arcade. Just basically at that time, we needed to compete with other companies, so that's why there were 4 players.
Oh, well, so this started as not even a beat 'em up, but or a belt scroller, but as a platformer almost.
Yep.
That's wild.
Yep.
I would play the hell out of that one too. Where's that?
Just gonna say I would play the heck out of a Ninja Baseball Batman platformer.
Oh my goodness! All right, so all this time passes, right? And now we get over to the UK. You guys start to get involved in this project. Dave, if I have my my research correct, you have written Go Straight.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Go Straight, the guide to beat 'em ups, right? That's Bitmap Books, I believe, published it.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it came out in February, but it was 2 years worth of writing and research, and Steve actually wrote a few of the write-ups in there as well.
Oh, that's awesome. I was. It's so weird. I was looking at it a couple months ago, just like obviously not knowing that we would be doing this interview, and I was like, man, I really want to get this book. It's really expensive to get off Amazon right now. So maybe at some point, like, it's a gorgeous looking book. Like, congratulations just on that. It looks outstanding.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was weird because I used to be a games journalist back in the day, and that's how me and Drew first met. Actually, I interviewed Drew for Retro Gamer magazine. That was about I think that was like 2011, 2012, something like that. But yeah, he and I just have kept in touch all this time, and but then the beat 'em up. I mean, the beat 'em up genre is just my favorite anyway. Like Streets of Rage 2 is my favorite game of all time, of all time, 100%. And I just thought, I saw a lot of my friends in the games industry writing these coffee table books, and I thought I'd love to do that as well, but I didn't quite know what the subject matter would be. But I thought, okay, what do I really know inside out? What's my favorite thing in gaming? And I was like, well, belt scrolling games are my favorite genre. But then I started to think, I hadn't been in games journalism for almost 10 years at this point. I left the industry back in 2014. So I reached out to a few of my friends who had done these books and, figured out their methodology and how they sort of tackled it with publishers and stuff. and basically came up with a few mock spreads. I think I did Kung Fu Master, I did Splatterhouse, and my friend Dan mocked them up, like like really nice art spreads, stuff like that. We pitched a bitmap, and they immediately just said yes, because
That's awesome.
That book had never been written before. It didn't exist. I think, and it's kind of weird to think that I'm the guy that wrote the book on the genre. It's such a weird thing. But no, like the thing that really convinced me to do it was the release of Streets of Rage 4.
Right.
When that got announced, I thought, okay, this is a thing that we never thought was ever going to happen. I've prayed for this game for like a decade plus. The fact that it's coming out is like a small miracle, and I said, okay, that has to be the last game in the book. I need to do 1984 with Kung Fu Master all the way through the decades to Streets of Rage 4, and I thought, what a lovely way to end that journey with the return of the champ, right? So yeah, I just pitched bitmap. They said yes. I sort of had to pick my jaw up off the floor, and then I got to work, and that was 2 years later. It just came out. So I'm currently writing a new book. I can't say who it's being published by, but I'm basically tackling the run and gun genre next. So I'm doing the same thing, but for Contra, Cuphead, Gunstar Heroes.
Oh, that's outstanding. If you need anybody to work for free, Kris and I are always available. We'll just pitch our services.
Is it called Shoot Straight?
It's going to have the most blandest title ever. I think it's just called Run and Gun, a guide to on-foot shooters.
Oh, that's so awesome, though. And like I like the way you put that too. Of like you got to pick your jaw up off the floor because they said yes, right? Like you're kind of like the dog that caught the car at that point. Like like all right, what next? Now I actually have to sit down and do it. My goodness.
Oh yeah, I was kind of paralyzed for a little bit. Like, okay, how do I start this?
Yeah, I can imagine. I can. Yeah. I mean, I can't because I'm, again, schlub in New Jersey. I've written like one or two articles, and I'm like, yeah, that's great. God, I totally forgot what I was going to say. All right, so you get there, and you said beat 'em ups like your favorite genre, right?
Oh yeah.
What was your introduction to the beat 'em up genre? Do you remember like the first one where you were like, "That's dope. I need to play more of this"?
So it was probably, I can't say with absolute clarity, but my first memory is going to a place called Blackpool in England. Steve knows it very well as well because there's a really cool arcade scene there. Like back in the 90s and the 80s, that the whole, it's like a seafront town, kind of touristy.
Sure.
But it's full of arcades, and it was like they had everything you could think of. And one of my earliest memories was playing the Simpsons arcade game with a bunch of kids.
Hell yeah.
And completing it with my pocket money with them, and it was just this great, like, these kids I didn't actually know, they were just random kids, but we finished it together, and it was just like, I don't know, just something about they're very simple games when you think about it at their core, right? You are literally, as the song says from Streets of Rage, you're going straight, you're punching everything in sight until the game ends, but there's something so visceral and kind of refreshing and kind of almost therapeutic about that, that gameplay loop that just is so endearing to me. And it's such a simple format that over the years, developers, it's so simple that it can be bent and shaped and added onto and layered. And like you look at something like Guardian Heroes on the Saturn, right? That's at its core a very simple beat 'em up. You're still walking from left to right, up and down, punching things, but you've got a magic system, you've got the lane swapping element, you've got like all these other things, and it's just like such a malleable, posable formula that developers can get really creative with, and I think that's why it's never truly died and why it's back in a big way again now.
I remember that Simpsons game blowing me away, just how it looked as well, because obviously we were playing Simpsons on NES back then, and then you go into the arcade, it's like, oh, this looks like The Simpsons. This looks like The Simpsons, it sounds like The Simpsons, and oh, I can tell which one is Bart. It's not just this awful mess.
You're not being confounded by the bizarreness of David Grain's Bart versus the Space Mutants.
Yeah, I don't have to collect hats or destroy purple objects or any of that crap. I understand this game.
It's so funny too, because like I know that Kris and I had very similar, and I'm just going to speak for you, Kris. We have very similar experiences with certainly not going to Blackpool, but in New Jersey. And Drew, I'm sure you'll know this as well. Going down to Wildwood is like a rite of passage for a Jersey kid. And you go down to the boardwalk, and it's right on the ocean, and same kind of thing. Bunch of arcades, and you would go in, and inevitably somebody would be playing The Simpsons beat 'em up or X-Men, and in that time that you spent together, you became closer than brothers because you had this mission that had to be accomplished, and your mom or your dad or your grandma, grandpa, whoever had only given you like $5 in quarters. So I got to make these last, and we've got to do this together. And you're right. There's just this unbelievably like visceral connection that you had with complete and total strangers making your way through this genre.
You're playing Ninja Turtles, and all of a sudden, like a fourth kid comes up. You have no idea who he is, but now you're in it to win it. You're in it together.
That's right. Sorry, dude, you got to be Raphael. Nobody wanted to be Raphael because he's got no reach. But you're going to get in here, and we're going to do it.
Anyone with taste wanted to be a Leonardo, right?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Oh, man, Donatello's got that reach, though. He's got
exactly.
The reach.
Donatello for the win.
Yeah, he might have the advantage with the reach, but that's all he's got. Personality-wise, a write-off.
These fight words.
So was Simpsons the one for you as well, Steve?
Simpsons and Ninja Turtles, yeah. Down the arcade, the three main games I would play were WWF WrestleFest,
so
Ninja
good.
Turtles, and Simpsons arcade game. And I think for me, it wasn't even necessarily the gameplay of the beat 'em ups, even though I obviously love beat 'em ups. It was just how these things looked, because what you had at home at the time just couldn't compare. So playing like WrestleFest, another great example of just these huge sprites and just looking so much like the characters on the TV, and then you go home and plug in the NES and put like Steel Cage Challenge on or something. It's just depressing.
With the look.
Such bad memories of
I remember seeing the Ninja Turtles
but at
arcade
the time,
game
you convinced yourself it was great.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, you see the NES Turtles game, and it's like, all right, it's Turtles, I get it. And then you see the arcade game, and like, not only does it just look like the cartoon, it looked better than the cartoon. It was really well animated.
It didn't make you defuse any bombs underwater. So.
Exactly, and they're out there using their weapons to beat the crap out of the foot soldiers, which almost never happened in the cartoon. They almost never actually used their weapons. So seeing that gorgeously animated with all the voiceovers
they used
and stuff,
them even less over here. Any scenes with Michelangelo's nunchucks genuinely got cut. They weren't allowed to show his nunchucks.
Oh my goodness,
that's a fact.
We were deprived, totally deprived.
Yeah.
That is wild information.
So, do you remember the Ninja Turtles intro sequence where they fall from the sky and Leonardo ends up cutting the screen in two with his swords? And
of course.
So in that scene, you get Donatello swinging down with his bow staff. Raphael slides down with his two sides. Then it cuts to Shredder looking through a pair of binoculars. Then it goes back to Leonardo.
What?
And they had to get a guy to sing over the intro theme, so we got exactly the same theme, but every time someone would say ninja, you just hear someone going, "Hero!" just over the top of it.
Oh my goodness. That is absurd. And was it like that across all media in the UK?
Oh, yeah,
like,
yeah.
Ninja was
the only thing,
verboten?
We got the Ninja Turtles movie. That was the only thing they kept the ninja in, but everything else was Hero Turtles.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. Like, I knew that existed, but I didn't know that ninja was such a frowned upon concept in the UK. That's
I couldn't tell you why, and nothing since has ever been censored like that, but I think they were just, I mean, we're a polite bunch of chaps in most cases, so it was like, this is going to corrupt our lovely British youth.
That's right. You're going to go to soccer matches and become proper hooligans, damn it. That's the way we're going to do it. No ninjas for you. Oh my goodness. So obviously, you guys, right? You're gamers. You're like retro gamers. You're old, like the rest of us, and the listeners of our podcast too. It is what it is. It sucks, but it's Father Time is undefeated. Were you guys big time like comic book guys as well back then?
You know, I was as a kid. Yeah. Again, the Archie Hero Turtles comics I was big into. X-Men, Spider-Man. But as I grew up, I kind of fell away from comics somewhat. I only kind of got back into them again in relatively recent years. But as a kid, like the Hero Turtles comics, and the Simpsons comics, I loved those.
And what about for you, Dave?
I'm always ashamed to admit this, but I only started reading comics when I was in university. The only exception was the old Sonic the comic.
I forgot that one. That was one of mine too. Yeah,
that's literally the only comic I read until I was almost done with university. Which, as a comic writer, you should never admit that. So I studied journalism in university, and the very first comic I read was Transmetropolitan by Warren Ellis, who unfortunately these days has been outed as a bit of a creep. So I'm loath to say that
he's a bit problematic nowadays.
Yeah, but I can't deny, that's the one, right? So
it's incredible, absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Oh, so good. My flatmate was she had all 5, I think all 6, no 9. There's 9 volumes. Geez, all 9 volumes, and she said, I've just finished reading all of these. Do you want to borrow them because they're about journalism, and I know you're studying journalism? And I was like, yes. And I tell you, it was I'd say it was love at first sight, but I still didn't read anything other than that until I actually started writing comics. Then I thought, hey, I should probably start reading more comics if I'm going to write them. But my main comic series, Kiltopia, is like a cyberpunk thing, right? That's like my big one.
Right.
And that's inspired by things like Akira, but I only finished reading Akira last year. So I guess what I'm saying is like my writing is more inspired by video games than it is comics. And the reason for that is because I think if I read too many comics, I start to get overly influenced by them. Like I start to lift tropes and start to change my writing because of something I've read, and I don't want to do that. So I definitely read comics, but I kind of dip in and out, and I mostly read either independent comics, but that my friends have written, because we're all on the convention circuit over here in the UK and stuff,
right?
Or Image or something like that. I rarely read Marvel or DC, to be honest. I'm not a big superhero guy.
You're not missing a ton, I got to be honest.
What Dave's saying is that we're hacks and you're not allowed to tell anyone?
Yeah. No, we're all friends here because we are hacks as well. We have, this is episode 415 of our podcast because no one has told us to stop yet. And that's really about all there is to it. Yeah, like it's kind of the same thing. Like when Kris and I, when the idea for this show came about, it really was, I wasn't even on the first couple of shows. And here I am hosting all these many years later, how far we've come. It was just Kris and another friend of ours got together and like, let's do this, but without saying like, we want to do, Mark Maron's WTF podcast, but for comic book or for video games, or we want to do X, but for video games. So I totally understand where you're coming from of not wanting, you don't want to write the Warren Ellis version of Kiltopia. You want to write your version of Kiltopia.
Yeah. It's funny because,
sense to me.
Yeah, it's funny as well because a lot of people say like, when Kiltopia first came out, a lot of people were like, hey, Cyberpunk's quite popular now. Is that why you wrote it? And I said, dude, I've been working on this for the last 2 years. It's just a complete accident that things like the Cyberpunk game, and I think at the time Altered Carbon had just come out on Netflix, Blade Runner 2049 and stuff. And I was like, no, these things are just coincidental. Like, it's not like I saw these things. And I think if you ask any independent comic writer worth their salt, they'll tell you that unless you're writing something that you're passionate about and you actually, a story you want to tell or something you want to read yourself, it's never going to read as well as something you're just writing to catch a wave, Sure.
So how do we go from the books that you guys have worked on before, to where we are now, to like, yes, we love this game, we want to do this book? How do you get from point A to point B?
I think it was Steve's idea.
Was it?
I think yeah, if memory serves, I've gone over this in my head and I think I've got it right, but I think I was just talking to you about the game, I think, because I was writing about it for Go Straight.
Oh,
and I think you said,
yeah,
"Hey,
yeah.
you know Drew, don't you? You know the guy who made it." I'm like, "Yeah." I think you said something just simple like, "Do you want to ask him if we can make a comic of it?"
I think I said, "Get the comic rights," because this was just one of those, such a weird, strange game. I mean, like we've been through, it's just such an odd thing that as soon as you've seen it, you just kind of fall for it, and that definitely happened for me. And as soon as Dave said he'd been talking to the guy, and obviously me and Dave were working on a comic called BPM, Beatdowns Per Minute, at the time,
right,
which is still ongoing. And as soon as that was already inspired by beat 'em ups, it was like, wait, you mean there's a chance we could do a Ninja Baseball Batman comic? We got to try and go for that. Yeah, I think then Dave, you got in touch with Drew, right?
Yeah, because me and Drew had kept in touch ever since that Retro Gamer article over, I think it was LinkedIn, Drew, and I messaged you, and yeah, the rest is history.
And were there any, or was there any hesitation on your part, Drew, or were you got these a guy that you know and his friend are like, "Hey, we'll make a comic," and you're just, "Yeah, do it."
Well, yeah, no, I mean, again, to keep it alive, Dave and Steve, we had a call, and they were fans, and it didn't take a lot of a lot for me to say yes. I mean, the only thing I had mentioned is that I wanted the characters to kind of remain wholesome, and so. The guys agreed that was the right way to go, and quite frankly, like with the game, Dave. This is what Dave and Steve do. So I'm not from the comic book world, and so whatever direction that they tell me, hey, we want to go in this direction, we want to do this, and I'm pretty easy with, because again, I'm relying on their talents. To take it and make something really great out of it. And from what I've seen so far and from the story, the guys just, really, I'm really proud of what they've done.
How did the rights shake out with IREM? Like, did you have to run anything past them to use the characters, or are they just yours?
Well, what happened, in our contract, in our termination agreement, all of the rights of the characters were returned back to me. The initial agreement was basically, okay, here's your royalty payment for the games that we sold, and we retain rights to everything. And when I was like, no, I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to sign off on this. And they said, well, what's the problem? I said, well, the problem is that, I created the characters, and, I would like the characters back. So they revised the contract or the termination agreement, and returned the rights of the characters to me. So that's the thing is I have these characters, but they're not Ninja Baseball Batman because of, as I mentioned, the Warner Brothers situation. So we can't go around and promote the comic book as Ninja Baseball Batman, and title it as such. And that's why we're very careful when, we talk to people and say, well, these are the characters that were made, I don't know if you want to say famous or infamous, from the video game.
Gotcha. So I think we mentioned before, I think I'd asked you before if there was any chance of getting no, I think I asked Dave. I asked somebody this, if there's any chance of getting a Ninja Baseball Batman ported to other systems, or getting a new game in existence. I know there's beat 'em ups. You mentioned Streets to Rage 4 earlier. Beat 'em ups are definitely having a bit of a renaissance right now. Shredder's Revenge is coming out next week. Is there any possibility that we could see these characters? Like, would there be maybe a Ninja Baseball Spirits game in a more modern beat 'em up vein?
Maybe.
Oh, don't give me hope. Don't.
It's funny you mention that because Steve and Dave and I had a call last week, and maybe we'll see.
Oh.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah,
that's not a no.
Yeah, you could have very simply said no. That would have been a very, very different, much sadder, soul-crushing almost answer.
Drew, say no.
Please don't. So
Never say never.
Oh, that's I like your optimism, sir. I full support here from the Stone Age Gamer podcast for whatever that support counts for. So as you guys were then developing the comic, right? You have to go in and throw some backstory onto the characters. Did you go back and look at the players who they were based off of? Because not for nothing, Jose Canseco, Roger Clemens, Daryl Strawberry, there's a little bit of controversy in some of their behaviors. They were naughty boys for
let me make one thing clear. Jose in the game is similar to, but legally distinctly different to Jose Canseco.
Have you had conversations with Mr. Canseco that we can neither confirm nor deny things happened?
We're on good terms, but he's just hard to get into it.
I've heard that about him. The more I learn about my childhood heroes, the less I want to have learned about my childhood heroes. The bat that Kris got me not only has his signature on it, but also says juiced, because he's very proud of the steroids that he took, that's a whole other thing. He is colorful. But yeah, so did any of that go into any of the backstory, right? Because Daryl Strawberry's a really interesting cat. I personally don't know a ton about Ryan Sandberg, but just out of curiosity, if any of their backstories kind of influenced you in any way.
We wanted to make them so Steve and I worked on the script together. We had a lot of phone calls, over Skype and stuff, sort of, I guess, like writing room sessions where we kind of just kick things around and threw things at the wall and just sort of said, okay, so why are these players becoming ninjas? Okay, what's their dilemma? What's at stake here? Until it all kind of clicked into place. But in terms of the characters, we wanted to go fully original with it. Mm-hmm. Without giving too much away, I guess. So Jose is the captain again, but he's kind of unconfident at the start. We wanted to give him a hero's journey, right? So
sure,
learning to form a team. But just I suppose in the Turtles, you've got Raphael, who's a bit of a hothead and doesn't like authority and stuff. That's Beanball. He's brash, he's a bit of a bully, he's a bit of a loudmouth kind of pig to begin with. And Jose
he thinks he should be the captain.
Yeah. Jose can't keep him in line, so there's a
that definitely sounds like Roger Clemens, not for nothing. So.
And then you've got Straw, who is he's basically the most tactical player in the league. He's really good at analysing any situation, kind of like a genius, and he can sort of figure out the best play at any one time, the best approach. And then Rhino is the kind of optimistic, kind of cheeky, kind of not comic relief, because we didn't want to make a joke out of him, but he's always there with a quip or to amp the team up and make sure they're feeling okay. But at the heart, it's like Drew said earlier, we wanted to keep it wholesome, and it really is a story about teamwork and becoming a team and putting your differences aside and just getting together for the good of the game, kind of thing.
I think the story and the style and everything came down to the fact that we wanted this to be a modern take on a Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that comes across very distinctly, in the preview images and all of that. There are definite late 80s, early 90s Saturday morning cartoon vibes, which I personally think is outstanding. 100%, like you guys were saying, staying true to the property, not making it brown and gritty and there's got to be blood and guns and all of that nonsense. Just keeping this kind of wholesome idea together. Now, without you obviously don't want to reveal too much, but as you were then developing the enemies, right? Did that involve a lot of like research on your part? Did you have to dive into, right? Because we've got basketball players, which I know that basketball is certainly much more global than baseball. And I suppose hockey is too, to a point. But is hockey big in Europe?
Yeah,
it's certainly bigger than baseball.
So, okay.
Yeah, my town of Edinburgh has a hockey team.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, see,
Speaking of
we
hockey,
know nothing.
we actually got a question from one of our listeners. Snazums in our Discord server wants to know, when do we get Samurai Hockey Stick Woman?
Well, slight spoilers, but you get to see some hockey barbarians in the comic.
Oh, that's so excellent.
I love that whole concept of fighting different opposing sports teams.
Yeah, so we went in terms of the story, again, like Drew kind of covered, he owns the characters, but we don't want to step on the toes of IREM and stuff too much, so we tried to kind of take the spirit of this thing, no pun intended with the name, but take what made that thing great and then kind of go, well, what can we do with it that sticks to what's true to the video game but make it our own? So the idea of like, well, if there's ninjas in baseball, what could there be in hockey? What could there be in all these other sports? And that kind of started the idea of like, okay, what if all the other sports are trying to get rid of baseball? And that was our starting point.
That's outstanding.
I love that concept. I can't wait to see what you do with the esports one. I'm very curious how that's going to pan out.
Well, one of the things, because you mentioned, like, did we research anything? I had recently watched The Last Dance on Netflix. The Chicago Bulls documentary. So, and this isn't really a spoiler, but the captain of Straw. He used to be a basketball player, but he defected to baseball, like Michael Jordan, right? So that's kind of like, that's why the basketball team have beef with him.
That's so fantastic.
Yeah, but that's all I'll say about that one.
That's so good. I love that. And there's pro wrestling involved as well. And now, Steve, I heard you mention WrestleFest. So, like, are you a wrestling guy?
I'm a 90s and 80s wrestling guy.
Okay.
So I'm a Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Rowdy Roddy Piper, Macho Man wrestling guy.
So that's that kind of era, like the larger than life WWF at the time type of characters is what we can kind of expect.
Big boys.
Just well, I heard it described as meaty men slapping meat is what 80s and 90s wrestling was described as.
That's what our TV guides describe wrestling as over here. Yeah. It fits with the aesthetic, right? If we're gonna go go for a Saturday morning cartoon like it's 1993 all over again, then yeah, the wrestling side of it's gonna look like the 90s too.
Oh, that's so fantastic! Like, because WrestleFest was great. I'm a huge wrestling nerd as well. Like, I'm looking over at my shelf right now, and I've got my Funko Pops and my Macho Man Randy Savage that was part of the He-Man Masters of the Universe line that they re-released.
Oh yes,
it's so good.
I've got the Ninja Turtles Michelangelo Randy Savage hybrid figure.
It's so good. It's so silly. Love everything. So like that makes me really, really, really happy. I feel like you guys are really just making this for me, and I appreciate that. I have to be honest with you.
If you look at the Kickstarter campaign, there's a panel where I'm not even sure you would have recognized him because obviously we've changed quite a bit, but King Babe is on there because King Babe does exist in our comic, but again, we want to do our own thing. So we've gone Saturday morning mixed with wrestling, and King Babe is wearing a huge cape, he's got a scepter, and he has a gigantic baseball for a head. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the direction we're going to look at with the wrestling stuff.
So that's absolutely fantastic. Now, The Kickstarter says it's all the way written, right? The whole story's done. You're good on that part, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. So initially we wrote it as like a single book, like a 140-page graphic novel. But then we realized that might be quite risky because we'd have to make a lot of money, So
sure.
So we've kind of broken it down into issues now.
And how far along are you on the artwork? Is that something that like you do kind of piecemeal, or do you do a whole issue at a time?
Yeah, we'll be doing it a whole issue at a time. It's the artwork's obviously much less developed than the script, because obviously we want to make sure we hit the money on Kickstarter, because otherwise we'll have put all the money into making a comic and then not selling the comic. So the comic's in early stages for artwork, but there's more than you currently see on Kickstarter. But yeah, it's nowhere near the same direction as the script in terms of how finished it is. Okay.
And the Kickstarter, so the Kickstarter mentions that there will be digital issues as well as physical, right? Depending on different tiers?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. And is there any thought to just digital? Like, if you don't hit a certain number, is it kaput, or do you then kind of think maybe we'll go just curiosity, I suppose?
I guess if it doesn't, we'll just put it back on Kickstarter, but knock $1,000 off.
Yeah, it's like, well, I mean, there'd be ways to make it cheaper, but the way it's kind of it works at the minute is we've got lots of like extras on there, like T-shirts and baseballs and ninja masks and stuff, because those sort of things will help people to see that they get value for money. But if we don't make enough money, like, those are the sort of things that help float the amount so we can afford to make the comic. So if we put it back on Kickstarter, we'd just probably have less stuff that you could get. It would just be the comic, and that way we could ask for a lower target. But you're going to have to ask for less money, but from a lot more people. So we tried to find the balance where it's like, well, we know a lot of people are big into this. Like, we did a tier where 4 tiers, each one had an individual hand-drawn sketch of each of the ninjas from myself, and they all went straight away. And because people are mad onto this thing, and this is why I'm saying we can't change the design of the characters too much, because people love them. Even though the game was like Drew himself said, it wasn't a success, but people love this stuff. So it just means that tiers like that kind of help get towards where we want to be, and we'd probably see less of that sort of thing if we end up going for a lower goal. But I'm pretty optimistic we're going to get there.
Yeah, I'd be shocked. I mean, you're pretty close at this point. Like, it's like less than $1,000 away, right?
Yeah, we've hit the mid campaign slump. It happens even with my biggest comic. It always happens. Kiltopia. There's always a bit in the middle when it just flatlines for a few days and it starts to crawl up again.
Yeah, I mean, the way I don't think we interviewed David for Nintendo Force, and that's not going to make the issue's not going to be out before the Kickstarter's over. But I imagine there's going to be there's got to be some other outlets that are going to pick this up and like retweet it or get it out there, because I'm just looking at the numbers right now, and like it is astonishing to me that more people aren't talking about it, because I've definitely seen more people talk about the game with reverence. Have any larger outlets picked this up to promote it? Has the Angry Video Game Nerd, is the Angry Video Game Nerd aware of this?
I believe he's aware of it, but I don't know. I think the Angry Video Game Nerd thing, I think it's just if you want the Angry Video Game Nerd to cover something, like I think there's probably just a price that would be more than our campaign for him to do so.
Yeah, I think a lot of I think it's maybe like a combination of a few things. I think it's just like it's E3 time as well, right, in the games industry. So we're probably low down on people's priority lists. And a few outlets like Retro Gamer said that they would happily cover it, but only once it's funded, which kind of defeats the purpose a little bit, because it's like, if you cover us, then we'll definitely get funded, So we're just kind of on social right now. I think as well, a lot of journalists are kind of like, they're kind of young as well, like not all of them, but like there's a lot of new blood out there who probably aren't familiar with the game yet. But we'll keep pushing it. But yeah, I think the initial announcement it went mad on Twitter, but we didn't have the campaign link live then. So I think it's maybe lost a few people, but they should be able to find it again at some point.
Yeah, that's where I found out about it, and I went immediately to our editor at Nintendo Force. It's like, can we write about this? Because we were just talking about this game. The issue that it's going to be in is all beat 'em up themed, and they had already planned on reviewing Go Straight in that issue. And we were doing this whole like retrospective on beat 'em ups, and one of the staff writers jumped in and said, "We've got we've got to talk about Ninja Baseball Batman. And then like 4 other staff members, myself included, jumped in and said, yes, we've got to mention this game in the magazine somehow, somewhere. And then like 2 days later, you announced the Kickstarter on Twitter, and I was just like, Lucas, we got to do this. Can we talk about this? And then, of course, he had me reach out to you. So you said okay, and then I was like, all right, well, here you go. And Lucas was like, no, you're doing this now. I'm like, okay. I've never done a interview via email before, but all right, I'm learning. Let's do it. And it was so thank you for that experience, but also just I can't wrap my head around the fact that how cool this thing is, and if more people knew about it, like even just knew about it, that they would be into it. And I just love these character designs. I love matching colored things, so like it was one of my things that drew me to the Ninja Turtles. Like, oh, here's 4 characters and they're all color coded. This is perfect, and like this is the same basic principle here. So I've kind of lost the thread of where I was going. I'm also very tired. How you doing?
I'm good, full of energy.
Yeah, I mean, so we could, I could do this for hours and hours. I really honestly could, because it's still only 7:46 here on the East Coast, and it's even earlier for Drew.
Good.
He's got hours before bed. But it's it's getting close to 1 a.m. there for you guys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Is there anything? Is there? Next time we'll have to do it earlier. It's fine. We will jump on, like, if content creators want to talk to us, we're like, yeah, what time do you need us to be there? But we usually interview people that are on the other side of the world. I don't understand why that is. That's a whole separate thing. Is there anything that we haven't covered yet that you're like, because I definitely have one more direct question about one of your campaign rewards, because I just find it fascinating. But is there anything that you guys wanted to mention that we haven't covered yet?
I guess just on the comic, like, yeah, check out the Kickstarter, give it a look. There's a lot more sort of surprises and twists that we haven't sort of gotten into yet, that expand on the story of the game and flesh out that world and whatnot. So yeah, give it a look, check out the game as well. Yeah, and chuck us some coin if you feel that we're worth it.
Yeah, and for me, it's just like a big thank you to everyone who's backed so far. I mean, we're aware of how niche this thing is, and we've had surprisingly little pushback from the fact it's a new art style and the fact that it's got a new name. Like, a lot of people have just been really damn nice about it. Totally the opposite of what you expect when you go, oh, we're changing a project slightly. And rather than people exploding at us, loads of people are embracing it. Like, we put the picture out on Twitter of King Babe, and it's like, okay, here we go. They're going to see that he looks like a wrestler with a massive baseball for a head. And the first response we got was like, "This is amazing! Someone do this in pixel art." And like, oh, this is great.
Yeah, I mean, when you make such a marvelous, I mean, he's just majestic. There's just no other word for it.
It's so great.
He truly is a king.
A little sideways question here, because I never really dove into the mythology in the game. For some reason, I always thought the main characters were robots. Were they always dudes in suits? Was that always the story?
Yeah, I mean robots were not even something that I cut out for. There you go. Robots never even came into the thought process. It was always a man.
Man, I was way off. I don't know why I thought they looked like robots to me.
At least for me, he was a man, and then he became men as there were 3 more of them. So yeah, robot was not really something that I had thrown out there. I have read where people also look at them as robots, and I still don't see that.
You know what? I figured it out. I'm looking at it. They look like Mega Man Robot Masters.
Yeah,
the eyes, the boots, the whole nine. They're proportioned kind of like Mega Man Robot Masters. That must be where I made that connection in my mind. I love that they're dudes in suits.
in the new sort of art direction for it, it's kind of one of the things, one of the reasons me and Dave kind of talked about this, one of the reasons I made them a little sort of more elongated and more human proportioned, except maybe Beanball, who's still spherical. But wanted to make it clear that these are guys, so we see them without their costume. I think one of the early things me and Dave were talking about a bit of the script, and we're like, well, how do we do this? Because in the script we want to show that they look worried or something. It's like, well, they can pull the mask down, and oh yeah, they're wearing masks. They're guys. And
he's pulling it down to eat a hot dog in that one image. I love it.
Yeah.
And we also felt like it humanizes them as well, right? It kind of makes them more relatable. And after the first issue, every issue after that, like, is focused on one of the ninjas, like their backstory and kind of how they are, the way they are. Like, why is Beanball such an asshole to Hosey? Like, why does he have a chip on his shoulder? You know, there's a reason for these things. So yeah, we wanted to just humanize them and make them relatable and kind of lovable. And yeah, so I think that's why we said, hey, let's just show them in human form, I guess, outside their suit.
Yeah, and I think, you know, when you do see the comic itself, you know, Dave and Steve really created the personalities for each of the characters. So, you know, they really brought them. I mean, they really you'll be able to identify with them. You know, so definitely not robots.
So
we have had that, though. We did have people say, hey, I thought these guys were robots. And luckily, before I could even say anything else, someone jumped in and went, they have skeletons when they get electrocuted? Like, okay, cool, I don't have to do this.
I'm glad I'm not alone.
But you are wrong.
Well, I'm used to that.
Oh, that was fabulous. So as we're sitting here, I was looking at the Kickstarter page earlier, and I noticed that one of the art prints is based on a card that is sitting right here in front of me. I am currently looking at my 1989 Fleer Billy Ripken fuckface written on the back. It is legit sitting on my desk right now. It's one of my favorite cards. I love the fact that this existed. And it's just out in the world, and like, it's a thing that you can just go buy. But you guys growing up in the UK, not being baseball fans, how did you get an image that references this particular card from a brand that they don't even make baseball cards anymore? Like, Fleer, it just doesn't exist.
I can answer this disappointingly quickly.
Oh,
yeah.
Man.
we didn't design that card.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that makes sense. All right.
So, yeah, it's there's a guy. His name's Rusty. He does a lot of artwork for Beat 'em Up, fan art and stuff like that. And he actually did the artwork for Hardcore Gaming 101's Beat 'em Up Guide, which is like a magazine that came out. As well. So I got in touch with him and said, okay, he's obviously a big Beat 'em Up fan. And I just said to him, yeah, do you want to do a print? And he went, yeah. And I said, tell me what you want to do, because like, I love his style. And that's what he chose. He loves that card as well, so that was his idea.
Oh, that is it. It's so I love that is in there, and like, I love that you say on the Kickstarter, like, there's going to be a lot of references to things, and the fact that this is right there on the page of, like, if you know what this card is, then as soon as you see it, it's incredible. And if you don't know it, it's still an awesome piece of artwork. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Well done to Rusty.
And also, like, Drew helped us out with the baseball terminologies, because we wanted to get a few. We wanted to make sure those were correct. So Drew, when Drew was looking through the script, it was like, hey, change this to this, or that's not quite right. So yeah, Drew kept us, because we don't know baseball. You know, we're not from a country that celebrates it. So
it's it really is the best game ever. Just in case anybody was wondering.
The best reference we've got hasn't even been shown yet. We've got such a niche little reference to one of the coolest things in this comic that I can't talk about because it will ruin it. Yeah. But I can say that we go more Power Rangers than you would expect.
Wow. Okay. Because
unfortunately, though, you've got to wait until the 5th and final issue to see what we're talking about.
Not fair.
But it's worth it. It's really worth it. Like if you were ever into Power Rangers and all parts of Power Rangers and certain gigantic aspects of Power Rangers, I'll shut up. But you'll see.
See, I was going to ask if there was a Voltron influence here, but I'll just keep that to myself.
All I'll say is if you go onto our Kickstarter and you look at the panel with the page with King Babe, and in the background you see the sort of guy in the sort of black ninja costume laughing. If you look to the right, the bottom right panel of that page, you can see something.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you realize we are legitimately doing this right now. Like, I'm
Go
scrolling
ahead.
through the
Go
wiki.
ahead. So it's the page where he's peering over with the van driving through the wilderness, and then you cut to King Babe, and in the very bottom right panel, in the top right of that panel, there's something.
Oh
my goodness.
Notice that.
Yeah.
Oh. This really is, like, I don't know, for whatever it's worth, Drew. You have given to the world this really incredible thing that is so, like, I think Dave and Steve, you guys both said it earlier, and you might have said it too, Drew. There's a very malleable quality to this particular property that lends itself to all of these wonderful references. It's just like, it's just an incredible thing. Man, I don't even know what to say after that. That's, yeah.
Well, Dan, if I may, again, it wasn't all, me. The guys at IREM, the programmers really did, a fantastic job. It's unfortunate that the game wasn't an arcade hit because they really did some really great stuff. The fact that, there's a fan base just blows me away. And, with, Steve, and Dave, working on this project, I'm just a very lucky guy, really, to be able to have something that people really kind of take to, and the people that I met along the way, I'm just really very very happy and excited for the comic, and as I mentioned, we'll see if there's something beyond that. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time, the fact that you even care about it. Again, is very humbling to me, and I'd just like to say thank you.
Well, I think I can speak for all of us when I say thank you. That was definitely the correct, humble answer to give. But without that initial spark, none of this is here, man. And that is, you put a spoke on the wheel, as it were, right? In the history, in the pantheon of what beat 'em ups, belt scrollers, whatever you want to call it. And that's something to be incredibly, proud of. And yeah, I don't really think there's much where we go from there, though. I mean, like I said, I could do this for hours. But I do want to give you guys opportunities to get like your plugs in. Kris, unless you had any other questions that I didn't get to.
No, I mean, not that transition well.
Well, yeah, I mean, I could sit, like I'm saying, like we could sit here and start going into like your retro game history and like what you love and what you're playing and all that stuff. But
Dreamcast.
Oh, so like Power Stone, like how good is Power Stone? Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Like this is another 2-hour podcast that we could start. Which we
can
would
come back on and just talk video games some other time with you. That's
please,
fine.
Oh yeah,
please. That would be amazing.
Anytime.
So, is there? So yeah, I guess final plugs. What do you guys want to get out there? And it doesn't just have to be Ninja Baseball Spirits. If you want to plug anything else, please feel free, and we'll link it and retweet it and all that good stuff.
After you, Steve and Drew, I'll go.
I got nothing to plug. Look at me. I'm just a wandering artist that wanders around bumbling into gigs. It's cool. yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram. It's at Robotic Steve. I draw lots of fan art for folk for free. I just do polls and stuff and draw lots of stuff. Come say hello. I'll draw stuff for you. We'll have a good time. Other than that, I got nothing to plug. Please back the comic. I really hope it does well. Genuinely something I love. It's been amazing to work on it. It's been amazing to work with Drew. But other than that, yeah, I just really hope people get a kick out of this thing.
Robotic Steve. So they're not robots, but you are. I was close.
But you were wrong. It's okay. It's fine.
You're wrong about that. You were wrong about Donatello. It's just a whole night of you being wrong, Kris.
See, now there's a podcast.
All right, Drew or Dave, what did you guys want to plug?
I currently work with a company. We make arcade games. The company is called EndemieroUSA.com. We do a lot of games that you'll see in Dave & Buster's or Chuck E. Cheese, for example. So yeah, if you see a SpongeBob game in Chuck E. Cheese or Dave & Buster's, we did it. We're a couple of Avengers games right now, and we just released Jurassic World. So that's in all of the Dave & Buster's right now, and it just so happens that was the #1 movie last week. So yeah, go to the arcades and see what Endemiro USA is working on. And again, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter. It's Dave S. Cook, all one word. And yeah, so Go Straight, the Ultimate Guide to Side-Scrolling Beat-em-Ups came out in February. You can get that now on Bitmap Books. I'm writing a follow-up about run and gun games. And the 5th and final issue of my cyberpunk comic series, Killtopia, is hitting Kickstarter in November. And it's being adapted for television right now by an animation studio in LA, so it's all kind of quite exciting right now.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. It's kind of mind-blowing, but yeah.
That's amazing.
Also, we'll have, me and Steve will have issue 2 of BPM on Kickstarter at some point. And BPM, Beatdowns Per Minute, is our comic tribute to side-scrolling beat-em-ups. It's basically about vigilante cops fighting a drug cartel in 1992 using their fists and feet.
A drug that specifically turns people into fighters.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. Is Go Straight, is that only, can you only buy it physical and get a digital code with it, or are there digital codes separately?
Only physical for now.
Okay.
I know that we're talking about doing a reprint in the new year, so there may be some extra games popping up in that one that we couldn't fit in the first one, so it could be a deluxe kind of thing.
Awesome.
But, yeah, that's up to the publisher, that one.
Excellent. Well, you give me their number. I'll make sure set them straight. All right. I think Kris, I think that's going to do it. Except for we can't end an interview without your traditional super weird question that we have to ask everybody. So I will give you the honor of asking the super weird question.
Well, thank you, Dan. We like Dan said, we have a tradition. Whenever we interview somebody, we always ask this question, and it's because of how well the first answer went. So, what bread is the best bread?
Wow.
Oh,
okay.
God.
Okay, I'll go. I like olive bread. A nice crusty loaf with black olives in there. That's quite nice. Good for dunking in soup.
All right. We have never gotten that.
Yeah, that's a new one. All right.
Wait, if we class olive bread as a bread, even though it's got stuff in it, can I class pizza? Because if so, pizza. There's no competition for pizza. Pizza is the best bread.
I mean, I definitely want to allow it, but...
I mean, it's all you're getting, so take it or leave it.
All right, no, that's fair. That's fair.
I'm gonna go with King's Hawaiian.
Oh, nice.
Ooh,
very nice.
Fine choice.
You can have a Hawaiian pizza.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the first person we interviewed was a guy who hosts the Atari 2600 Game by Game podcast, and I was just trying to. It was the first interview I'd ever done, so I just thought of whatever weird question came off the top of my head, and I was asking about bread, and it turned out he's a professional baker, so we had some really good answers to that.
Yeah, it was like another 20 minutes that we weren't expecting. Like, it was just free content. It was great. Well, gentlemen, I honestly, truly cannot thank you enough. This has been a treat and a joy. And as humbled as you are, Drew, for the response that you get to this, I know Kris and I are always humbled that people will come on and talk to us, because we are just two dudes from New Jersey who happen to love this stuff passionately, and we appreciate the good people in the community that come on and want to talk about stuff and have a good time, and this was a blast, and I can't wait to have you guys back on when we'll just BS about games.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
outstanding. All right, Kris, do you want to take us out? Do you have your script up? I didn't load the script.
We'll record the
we'll do
intro
okay.
and the outro afterwards, yeah.
All right. So we get this very professional sounding ending then, where I'm just stumbling through it. It's good.
That's what Evan's for. We'll fix it in post.
Don't fix it. Leave it all in, and let's all acknowledge that pizza is the best bread.
That's a genius answer. You're
definitely
not
wrong. Like, that is without. Yeah. And have you guys ever even? All right, so we have to know this at least before we leave. Have you guys been to the States and had pizza like on the East Coast?
Yeah, in New York.
Yeah, I've been to New York.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's all right.
I think the best one I had was Grimaldi's in Brooklyn.
Oh my goodness!
So it's the best pizza I've ever had in my life.
Hey Dan.
Yes, sir.
How about Pete and Elda's in Neptune?
Oh, outstanding! It's one of the joys about. I used to live in Texas. I moved to Texas out of New Jersey. Now I'm back in New Jersey. I lived in Corpus Christi and Midland, which is both in the middle of nowhere, and could not find anything even approximating good pizza. It was like wet dough. It was just gross. I don't know if where you are. I don't want to say. I said it. I don't know if I should have. Evan will beep it out if you don't want us to. I don't know if where you are is any better.
No offense. There's nothing that compares to the East Coast pizza. But if anybody ever gets to Neptune, New Jersey, Pete and Elda's, it's there's no duplication of that. That's a one of a kind.
Yep, 100%. Oh,
we could hop on a plane right now.
Please do. Like, we could sponsor you. We'll raise some money and take you guys on a pizza tour. It'd be outstanding.
Oh, forget the comic Kickstarter. This is the Kickstarter we need.
This is the real one.
It's worth the trip.
I mean,
for sure.
I'm genuinely up for it.
Just don't threaten us with a good time, man.
Seriously. Get me out there eating more pizza than I make pizza every week for my kids, but I'm used to my pizza. I like going out and eating really good pizza, and God, when I lived in Brooklyn, there were two competing pizza places near me where we got our pizza, Mario's and Luigi's. I kid you not. Mario's was better, but Luigi's had better Sicilian pie. Mario's had better just regular pie, but it's neither here nor there.
This means there's room for you to move in though and open Waluigi's Pizza.
There you go.
Yes.
Only the most disgusting toppings, please.
It's nothing but anchovies, and I actually quite like anchovies, but I understand.
Let me ask you guys a pizza-related question. Do you know how they do pizza in Scotland?
No.
So,
man.
How do they do pizza in Scotland?
There's a lot of Italian restaurants. There's a lot of Italian people who emigrated to Scotland, right? So there's some really good pizza places here. But have you heard? Do you know what a chippy is?
No.
Chippy. So it's like a chip.
Is that like
you
a
guys
little,
know fish and chips, right?
Yeah. Is that like a little sandwich with chips on it?
No. So it's like a chip shop. So it's like deep fried. I guess like fries, deep fried everything. But you can get a deep fried pizza from a chippy.
Ooh.
It's literally like fried in oil until it gets like a batter around it, and it's like the most unhealthy but delicious thing ever.
Yeah, that's a good time.
Oh yeah, it's a heart-stopping time, but it's a good time. All the
I was
same.
going to say, it's a good time for the last 4 or 5 minutes of life you have after eating it.
But honestly, who's trying to live forever? I mean, come on.
So is it deep fried like with the cheese, like open with the cheese on top, or does it like fold in half before
Folded in
deep
half,
fry?
yeah.
Okay,
Folded in
all right.
half, and then just like dunked in the batter, and then fried until it's got a crunch on it. Oh man, it's so good.
That sounds miraculous.
Yeah, come to Scotland. We're a very unhealthy nation.
I love the idea of someone coming to Scotland just have a deep fried pizza.
Oh, goodness gracious. All right, gentlemen, I'm gonna cut it there. I'm gonna be the responsible adult in the room and let you boys get to bed. Again, thank you so much. We can't wait to have you guys back on. This has been a blast.
Yeah, same here.
Very thank you. Thank you so much.
But wait, there's more. Did I tell you about the elevator made with wood from Burgundy wine casks?
I think I can live without that particular piece of junk.
Do the intro outro shit. You see, I made it. I only cursed once that entire time.
I wasn't sure if we were doing that on purpose, but
I try to be a good boy when we have guests on, and otherwise I talk like a mook from a movie all the time. It's, I try to be somewhat professional. But you can't talk about the fuckface card without saying the word. Like, it just doesn't work.
I remember when that came through, and then Dave sent me the picture of it and was like, he says this is a reference to a famous card. I was like, oh boy, if the baseball cards I know, that's the one I know.
Like, no lie, legit, it is. My wife got it for me for Father's Day like 2 or 3 years ago. She just ordered one, like it's graded and whatnot, and it's
nice.
Sitting on my desk next to the 2 baseballs that my daughters, when they were like 3 weeks old, she like had them put their handprints on baseballs, and it says that my kids were born in 2009, so it's a little Yankee shrine thing, and it says Katie and Penny, the rookies of the year. It's so cute.
That's nice.
So
nice.
I've got that. And a Lou Gehrig standing over top of it, and then the fuckface card. Like that's all kind of right there. Right.
I love that you've got this lovely sort of memento of your child's birth next to a card that just says "fuckface."
Well, like I said, it's a Jersey thing. The fact that I got through that podcast only swearing once is kind of miraculous. So, Oh goodness. All right, so is there anything you can say off the record about this game that might be coming out, Drew? Is there any scuttlebutt or rumors? I promise we're good at keeping secrets.
No, not really.
All right.
Yeah, not really. Not really.
Okay, that's fair. All right. Well, when and if something happens, whatever you need from us, whatever that could possibly be, you have it. Please don't hesitate to ask.
Great, thank you.
We work very cheap. Basically free on everything we do, but if we can help in any way whatsoever, if something is happening, please let us know.
I mean,
Cheers.
With Stone Age Gamer, they on all our social media channels. So this will go up Friday. And when it goes up Friday, I'll include a link to the Kickstarter in the link to all the social media posts I do about the podcast. So
thank you.
It's not the most massive audience. It's not Eurogamer, but it's definitely bigger than Geekade and my personal account, which I've been retweeting from.
And I think I speak for all of us that we want it to go more than just the comic if we can, but obviously, it's all up in the air, isn't it, with with what can happen and stuff. But yeah, I mean, we all love this property. It's
gotta happen, man. It has to.
It's too good not to. It's one of those it's one of those cult properties that just seems like it. One of the questions I just didn't find a good opening for is like, why do you think the original game didn't succeed? Because I mean, I didn't know anybody who had ever even heard of it when we were growing up, and I didn't find out about it until way later, like most people. Like, why didn't this catch on?
Well, my theory is that, when the game came out, I had left the company in 92. The game really kind of came out, I think, in 93. The game, was very difficult to play. I mean, so, take a player who's paying on MAME, you play for free, right? So you can spend, let's say, $3, $4 to get through the first level. But in the arcade, when you're paying 25 cents per play, you can't get through the first level. At some point, you say, you know what, I'm going to go and play something that I have a little bit better value time-wise. So we would lose players just because they couldn't get through the first level. I don't know. Have you guys experienced? Again, you're playing on MAME, so your lives are infinite, and you're not paying to play. So it doesn't matter how many times you die, but when you're paying money to play, it does.
Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a fascinating point there. I think back to the way that I was drawn to games in the arcade wasn't necessarily about like, if the game's super hard, it was really just about like, well, this looks amazing, so I was drawn to it, kind of a thing. Like, I learned about the X-Men as characters from video games. I didn't learn about it till the cartoon. There were no comic book shops near me, so like the first thing I ever saw of X-Men was that arcade machine, and I was drawn to it because of the way it looked, because of the way it sounded, and I always wanted to put quarters in there because I wanted to press those buttons and make the cool things happen.
Right. But from the business standpoint, the operator buying that game, he's looking for a return on investment.
Yeah.
Sure.
He's not looking at it like, wow, this is really beautiful and cool, and what a great name. He's looking at it, well, how much money did it make last week? Oh, it only made $25, and my Ninja Turtles made $700.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, it's unfortunate because, even today, I had a great game. We came up with an idea for a game called Ticket Man because, in the arcades now, the players love to get tickets. And, it was a superhero magnet that picked up these crypto coins, which were all ticket values. And the game was doing $5,000 a week for a $3,800. It was a two-player game, so $7,600 was doing $5,000 a week, and they didn't buy it because the consumable, the coin, was a hassle for them to have to count when players would walk up with a bucket of coins. So there was an instance where the game had a tremendous return on investment, and they didn't buy it. Ninja Baseball Batman, earnings-wise, did not earn well, and therefore it didn't catch on.
Huh.
Man, it would have killed on the home market. Like I will die on that hill, man. It was a game that would have killed on the home market with unlimited lives. Oh my goodness.
Or even just balanced for home consoles. I think,
or that
about
too,
the artwork. This is the perfect game for a Blockbuster, for like a rental shop, or at least as I can say it, for gaming in America. Like, this is the kind of bold art direction that, as long as it had a good box art, like, a lot of people probably wouldn't be picking this up right off the store shelves initially, but within like word of mouth, within a month or two of it being on rental store shelves, I imagine this thing would have taken off, at least to a fairly successful degree. But I mean, Irem was still doing console games around that time, right? I mean,
yeah, but here's one thing, with Irem, we were one of the original licensees or licensee of the Super Nintendo. So I think there were only 7 or 8 titles available the first Christmas. Okay, so you would have thought that we would have sold millions of cartridges. Well, the first 350,000 came in and went out into the stores, and we only had a sell-through of 50,000. So we had 300,000 in inventory in Target and Walmart and Kmart at that time. Then we had another 300,000 on a boat that we were hoping sank.
That's bananas because you're talking about like Super R-Type, and that game was that game was awesome. And now you think if that's something like R-Type 3 on Super Nintendo is one of the most expensive games on the platform because there's so few of them out there. It's so bananas to wrap your head around that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I remember being at Ironman. We were getting all the returns from like Walmart and Kmart, and so I would help out, and I'm going through the boxes, and it was so fun. Like people would cut out a block of wood and put it where the cartridge would be. And then they would go to Walmart, and I guess, like they hand it to the sales girl, and she just takes it and gives them a credit and throws it in a bin. And so I'm getting these return games with little blocks of brick, wood blocks.
Two decks of playing cards is what I opened up one day when I bought a Super Nintendo game. I opened it up, and there were 2 decks of playing cards in there, and I was crying. And it was something stupid like Bubsy or something like that, and the person actually like
did you a favor.
Yeah, for real. Oh, that's so wild, though, man.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's wild, Kris. You should have asked this on the podcast. This is good stuff.
I was having so much fun listening to you go. I mean.
We went on a tirade about pizza. You don't need a tirade about Bubsy.
Yeah, seriously. We've talked enough about Bubsy on our podcast.
We do. We have covered Bubsy to an absurd amount.
Yeah, I own every Bubsy game. Like, I don't know why. It's just a fascination of mine. I don't think they're good, but I'm not
have you seen someone about this problem?
I probably should.
Even 3D?
Even 3D. I even bought both the PS4 and Switch version of Paws on Fire, which I can't believe they got Choice Provisions to make a freaking Bubsy game. Those guys are great.
I don't know what to tell you.
What are you doing? It's just one of those fascinating things. Like, you just look at it and say, this exists. And they keep doing it, too. They just keep making them.
Did you ever see the pilot for the cartoon?
Oh my God. They wrote poor Rob Paulson into that.
Rob Paulson, yeah. The voice of every cartoon ever.
He didn't deserve that. That wasn't nice of them.
I mean, he voiced about 1,000 cartoons. He was bound to have some stinkers.
That's fair.
Absolutely.
That's fair.
I love that Ninja Turtles crossover there where he's Donatello in the 2012 series, and they met in the original series, and he's Raph, and they're talking to each other. That was some good comedy right there.
That's great.
It's great because the whole bit is just about how they sound funny. It's just...
Thank you guys so much for coming on. This was a blast. I want this to succeed with all my heart and soul.
I do too. Yep.
100%. Definitely. I mean, it's a real fun project.
Yeah, it's kind of baffling to me as well because I thought like the initial announcement did really big, and I thought, oh great, we're gonna really smash it, and then the actual campaign went live, and it was like, oh, this is actually being a bit more of a challenge than we thought it would be.
Yeah. Have you posted like on the subreddits for like beat 'em ups and whatnot?
Yeah, we posted one that got really good traction. It got like hundreds and hundreds of likes and stuff, but it didn't really convert to backers, which is weird. I don't know if like postage is putting people off because like the postage since Brexit here in the UK is just really huge at the moment. So I don't know if that's putting some people off overseas, but I don't know. It's weird.
To be fair, everything here is so absurdly expensive at the moment as well. Like we are dealing with just record inflation. So yeah, I don't know if that has anything to do with like people are definitely hurting a lot more over these last couple of months than they were this time last year. But even still, you guys aren't asking for $50,000. Like
no.
It's like what, £6,000, right?
5,000.
5,000.
5,000. Like that's nothing.
Yeah,
But-
I guess like all we can do, I suppose, is just market the hell out of it and just keep sharing it around, and hopefully it'll stick. But the thing is, I find with comics as well, once you've done the first issue, those people will come back for issue 2, and then new people will come on each issue, and it just snowballs from there, kind of thing. That's pretty much happened with all my comics. I think a lot of people want to see how the first issue turns out before they invest as well. So, yeah, I guess we'll see.
I mean, one other thing, is I don't want to say, we're kind of handicapped in that we need to really kind of downplay the Ninja Baseball Batman aspect of this. It's hard to because the characters were in the game, but so we have to be careful too.
Sure.
Again, Warner Brothers, when you get an email and it says, defendant, and it kind of scares you a little bit. So yeah, I mean, one of the really good things, when I was talking to Steve and Dave the other day, and and they were saying that people, once they understand that it's really not it's not that big of a deal. It's just that we just can't come out like full force in your face like Ninja Baseball Batman, the comic, here it is. Warner Brothers, what was really interesting about applying for the trademark is they must have it's set up where when anybody files for a trademark, they're alerted to anything that could be possibly remotely infringing on their IP.
Sure.
For example, like Super Dog Car Wash, that was opposed by Warner Brothers. So yeah, it's not worth it for us to get involved in that. They've been really cool. They haven't sent me like a cease and desist about my my website. And like you were talking before about MAME, like MAME for me is great, but for Namco and Sega, I'm sure they feel differently,
And that's
it's such a grey area, though, right? Because how else can you play this thing? IREM don't want to re-release it, so how is it a problem to play on MAME, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. You're not taking money away from anybody, and I've found that a lot of people who emulate things will also buy things when given the chance. Like
I've got a huge retro game collection, but I've also got an even huger ROM collection.
Exactly. I have all those Ninja Turtles games, but you're damn right I'm buying the Cowabunga collection because now I can play
me
them on
too.
my Switch. It's
damn right.
It's just kind of the way it goes.
Would IREM have to go through you, Drew, if they wanted to release? Because like I just saw last week they did that Evercade.
That was
collection.
the first thing we said.
I know. Where's Ninja Baseball Batman? Damn it!
No, they do not. The rights to that game, the characters, they have the rights to the characters for that game. So yeah, they would not have to ask me to do it.
Okay.
But, they're going to run into the same problem that I did trying to trademark the name unless they do a deal with Warner Brothers. So, because Warner Brothers, will not, I think will oppose if they were to even go forward and do it. You got to remember too, I mean, IREM is not the IREM I worked with 30 years ago.
Sure.
Yeah.
They're basically, I want to say like a pachinko game developer at this point, and had no assets, no code, for a lot of their stuff. So I'm not sure about this new collection that you're talking that's IREM, because I wasn't aware that they had any of the assets.
So what I'm hearing is that we also need to start a Kickstarter to buy the IPs from IREM so that we can just do it.
Yeah, if they weren't sold off to another company, because a lot of those companies that either went bankrupt, somebody bought the assets of which, were a lot of old game. IPs. Yep.
Yeah, when they announced that Irem collection, I was kind of surprised. I was somewhat surprised that Ninja Baseball Batman wasn't on there, but I kind of assumed the Batman part of the name was the problem with that particular property. So it's nice to know I wasn't too far off there. But also, I was surprised that Kung Fu Master wasn't on this collection.
I was surprised that Snow Bros was on it. Like, that's a game that's disappeared, right?
Yeah,
that's been coming back lately, though, right? They got that new.
Yeah. There's the Switch remake too, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody's trying to swing that sword again. But like with Kung Fu Master in particular, it's such a fascinating game historically, like on the NES port and when Nintendo
It's the original beat 'em up, right? It's the grandfather of the genre.
Yeah, it's like that and Vendetta, right? Like those are the two.
Yeah, Renegade as well.
Or Renegade, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, those were the two. 1984 was Kung Fu Master. It started it all. You know, it's a shame it's not. I mean, the home port I think is better. The NES one I prefer. But yeah, it's such a simple but really engaging game. It's a shame it's not on there.
I love that it's just such a weird mashup of Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee too. Like, that makes me so happy. They're like, yeah, we're going to totally rip off both of these guys.
Yeah.
Just throw
So now,
this
what if
game out
somebody
there.
had the idea to re-release Ninja Baseball Batman and just do something similar to like what's been done countless other, like I'm thinking of what the Top Gear game has been re-released as, like just a different title. Man, what the heck? They changed the name of that too, because there was that whole TV series Top Gear. So avoiding games like that. What if they wanted to rename the game Ninja Baseball Spirits? Would they have to talk to you about that?
That's a good question.
I kind of hope that's what has to happen.
Because that would be a pretty cool boon for the comic too.
Yeah.
Because honestly, Ninja Baseball Batman's a fascinating, eye-catching name, but I kind of think Ninja Baseball Spirits is a better name overall. So,
people had told us that Ninja Baseball Spirits has a real Neo Geo feel to it. I think Dave was saying, which I think's really true.
That was the inspiration, like to try and make it sound like an SNK, like Neo Geo kind of arcade type name.
Nailed it.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
All right, well, we don't want to keep you guys. God, it's got to be really late for you guys.
Oh yeah, it's getting closer to 2 a.m. than 1 a.m.
All right, for real. We will reach out and schedule a time for you guys to just come on and shoot the shit.
Sure.
Just talk video games.
Absolutely.
If I can find any other podcasts that are bigger than ours that would want to chat with you all, send them in your direction. I just think everybody needs to know about this project. So thank you guys so much for coming on. This is
thanks for having us. This was fun.
That was really great.
And that's our show. That was fun, huh?
Oh, so good. Right?
Yeah.
Engaging. I wasn't lying.
No, you were not lying. And their answer about bread was
it's perfect.
I don't know what that olive thing you was talking about was. I just kind of played along, but man.
Oh, really?
No, I don't like olives.
You don't like olives? That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
with your 6-year-old palate.
Black olives, green olives.
Oh, you don't like green olives with the little fucking shit in the middle?
No, thank you.
Oh, see, look at this. In the intro and the outro, I have cursed so many more times than I did during the entire interview. And I had to say fuckface. There was no other way to describe it. But here, I don't know. When it's just you and me talking, Kris, I'm like, I don't have to be on guard.
Yeah, undo the belt.
That's right. I just take it out, put it on display for everybody. There it is.
All right, everyone. That's our show. Join us next week when Dan and I will be doing our annual E3 recap. Of course, as of this recording, there still hasn't been a Nintendo Direct announcement officially, but pretty much everybody else in the industry has had stuff to announce all month long, and they've made their voices heard. Holy crap, there's a lot of games.
Oh, there's so much. And I have no idea what Capcom did today. Because while we were recording, the Capcom showcase happened.
Yeah, we recorded a bit early to accommodate our Ninja Baseball friends across the globe. This was quite the globe-trotting episode. But anyway, it should be a fun week next week. We're probably going to skip everything and just dive right into it because, oh my God, I was putting together notes earlier today, and there's just so much to talk about. Hopefully, we get some, the Nintendo Direct isn't until, after we record. So
I think I saw a rumor today that it's the 29th.
Yeah, that's a weird one. It's being based on something that Alana Pierce said on a stream.
Yeah.
And
which would make sense, though,
I know what the date is.
But she works with Sony San Diego, who did the show. So,
so maybe she does know.
It makes a little bit of sense that she would know.
She knows more than we do, I'll tell you that for free.
That is for goddamn sure.
All right, we are on most social media platforms, and if you want to get in touch with us, we aren't very difficult to find. All it takes is a quick look at our show notes, and you'll see links to our social media accounts, as well as all manner of other fun stuff, like a link to our namesake, StoneAgeGamer.com, the Geekade Patreon, which helps keep this show running week after week, and more useful links than you can shake a joystick at. This show's theme song, Squared Roots, was written by Banjo Guy Ollie. You can learn all about his wonderful music and more by following the link to his YouTube channel, also in the show notes. And finally, as always, we'd like to thank our intrepid editor, Evan, for making this show listenable for all you folks, and we'd like to thank all you folks for listening in the first place. That's it, everybody. On behalf of Dan and myself, keep playing games.